So for those of you who didn't see, I recently did my official 2025 AFL ladder prediction. Let's just say, I can admit there was some controversial things said. Again, how can you make a ladder prediction and attempt to make people enjoy themselves at the same time without, saying at least something controversial? Because at the end of the day, if I said something very basic and I said something very common, I would just be like every single other person saying those things, right? So I said one or two controversial things, and then one of my good mates, Ty, basically decided to go and say shit that would probably start a riot in America. He just wouldn't, keep some of those opinions to himself. I looked at him during the video and I was like, what are you saying? That's so crap. Like, how could you say that? And then after the video, I'm like, bro, that was an amazing job. You just started so much controversy in my comment section. But at the end of the day, I had some teams sliding and I had some teams rising. So I kind of thought in today's video, let me go over a lot of those teams that I think will rise and fall and give you guys more of an in-depth opinion and my thoughts and opinions on the whole entire thing. And again, maybe even start some more controversy. Of course, if you do happen to disagree with me though, please don't go and threaten my whole entire family tree in the comment section down below. We're all big boys here. We're all potty trained. We can all wipe our ass on our own, I think. But obviously, yeah, there's probably going to be some things said in this video of your team maybe sliding. So let's keep it family friendly, like a freaking Moana movie, and not turn this into, I don't know, the plot of Terrifier 3. Again, before we do get into it though, there's still a decent amount of you guys who watch these videos who are not yet subscribed to the channel. So if you could do me a massive favor and please make sure to leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel for the latest AFL content and news. And I guess we'll just get straight into it. With the first team that I'm actually going to be starting off with is a slider. And that does happen to be the GWS Giants, who I unfortunately do believe they will slide a little bit this season and potentially slide to the point where I don't think they'll make the 8. Again, it's just very unfortunate that for GWS right now, they lost a lot of depth in this free agency and trade period. I don't think people realize how much depth they actually lost. Again, losing James Peatling sucks because he started off as a sub guy, and then he ended up going in and playing a really crucial role to the finals. But at the end of the day, you can probably afford to lose a guy like that, even though he'll make a good impact on Adelaide and help them out. But again, there were two really big names that they lost who play backline for them, who are exploring opportunities now to go and play some midfield at other teams, in obviously Harry Perryman being the first one, who I don't think people realize how decent he actually is down back and what a great effort he had for the Giants in his career there. Again, he would still be one of the better backmen in the league if he didn't want to go and move on to being a midfielder. You've also got Isaac Cumming now, who wants to be a midfielder and more specifically a wing. It's just that GWS have a really solidified midfield that they weren't able to keep these guys. They weren't able to keep these two really nice backmen who help out a lot with their depth. And they also lost another player who, even though he wasn't really getting a game, he was still a guy who would come in if they had a backman injured. And that does happen to be Nick Haynes. So I fear for them that now that they've lost Cumming and Perryman down the back line, they probably would have replaced him with a guy like Nick Haynes. But you also lose him. So you lose three, especially two really solid backmen, a third depth player, and you've obviously lost Peatling, who looked to be a really solid midfielder and tagger for them. And the only player they brought in was Jake Stringer, who I don't really think is the type of player who should be on the Giants team. I don't necessarily know if he's going to be helping out with them that much, and he's definitely not a big enough inclusion, especially as a forward, to fill in the massive hole that they've now got down back. I also question their draft a little bit and question the year before that's draft. I just feel like they might unfortunately slide, especially if they have a couple of injuries down there. Again, that's my big sliding team. A team that I actually have rising though does happen to be Collingwood. Again, I know this is semi-controversial because some people think that Collingwood will make the 8. Some people think they're just going to, rot in a ditch and 48-year-old Scott Penderbury isn't going to be able to save them. But I disagree a little bit. I think they're going to have a similar season to what Richmond did in 2022, where all of the veterans are going to squeeze out every little bit of juice that they have left for one final push for finals. And then, I guess, well, we know what happened at Richmond after that. So hopefully for Collingwood fans, that doesn't happen. But I feel like it will be kind of a similar season where people forget that Richmond that year were very close off making the top 4. Again, if Tom Lynch didn't get injured and miss like 5 games that year, they probably would have made the top 4. So it is very unfortunate for the Tigers that year, but I think Collingwood will be trying to replicate that and try and push for the 8, which I have them in. They brought in Dan Houston, Harry Perryman, 2 great additions, Tim Membry to go play up forward if they need. They get McStay back from injury, who was a massive loss for them. I think rumours have it they're finally going to lock in a key defender for this year, which means that Darcy Moore should hopefully play a lot better for them as well. Again, I think the writing's on the wall to have one last season where they push for the 8. And I think there's Collingwood fans out there who believe that they could squeeze enough juice out of these veterans to where they contend for the top 4, which I believe is very much a possibility. Again, another team I have sliding, but not sliding that much, is the Sydney Swans. Don't get me wrong, I still think the Sydney Swans are going to make the 8, and they didn't really lose any players, but I think there are some issues with the Swans. First and foremost, you don't lose 2 grand finals within, 2 years pretty much by like a massive margin like they did in both of them, and not have a little bit of a scar. Again, we knew that that scar was going to be bad enough to where a guy like John Longmire was going to be under a lot of pressure, that if he doesn't actually do something and perform in finals, he could be in danger of being moved on. Of course, he kind of, I think, sensed the pressure and did a bit of a Damien Hardwick moment, has left the Sydney Swans. Again, he'll probably freaking coach for some other team next year, just like what Dimmer did. But I really do think losing your coach, being smashed by over 70 points, I think it was, in like 2 grand finals and 3 of the last 3, having Chad Warner meet up with West Coast over the offseason, potentially moving from another team. Again, there are some issues with Sydney, and I do believe they'll still make the 8. I just don't think they'll be as good as what they were last year, which looked like it could have been their peak, and make the top 4. I think they'll probably finish that 5th to 8th type of mark. But yeah, I could be wrong, and Dean Cox could come in and literally just keep them on track, and none of this ever happened. But historically as well, there's always a team who wins or loses the grand final who for some reason just don't make the 8 the next year. 2020, Richmond won it, didn't make the 8 the final year. The next year, 2016, the Dogs make it. They didn't, make the 8 the next year. Collingwood won it in 2023. They didn't make the 8 the following year. I think, again, Sydney Swans, they were in the 8 in 2022. They made the grand final. Really came close to missing out in 2023. It was only until the end that they made it. Yeah, it does happen. Historically, it's a thing. So I do worry a little bit for the Swans. And then the final team I'm going to be talking about, who I think is dramatically going to rise this year, does happen to be the Gold Coast Suns. I think the Gold Coast Suns have finally, the first time, a list that I think competes for the 8. I said last year they wouldn't make it. It's 1 year too early, and that they needed to develop the kids, which Dimmer really did. He would be dropping veterans left, right, and center to play a lot of the kids. And then I think go out and try and get a free agent or 2 and do well in 2025. And that's exactly what they did. They brought in Daniel Rioli, one of the best halfbacks in the game, who literally just won a best and fairest. And, contended for All-Australian 40, had an amazing season and was one of the best halfbacks in the game, like I said. They also brought in John Noble, who I feel like will low-key be a bit of a loss for Collingwood again. I think technically he's a premiership player, even though he's not. He should have been in that premiership team. Really nice half-backman who I think Gold Coast have visions of moving up and playing some wing and whatnot. Great addition. And they, of course, brought in Leo Lombard, who some people believe to be one of the best players in the draft. And he only fell because he's an academy guy. If you add those 3 guys to their already really good team, all of those first-year players get another year. The team gets 1 year older, and you've got players like Rowell and Anderson start to head into their prime. Anderson, I think I'm tipping to have like a near Brownlow year. I think he's capable of doing it. I think the Gold Coast Suns will be massive risers, and I think they will legitimately make the 8. But of course, if you haven't already, Please make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for the latest AFL content and news. Don't forget to comment your thoughts and opinions. What do you guys think about my rises and sliders? As well as go and check out my ladder prediction if you haven't already. So you get to see who I have extra rising and the other teams I have sliding. All of the above. Go and check that out if you haven't already. Again, subscribe to my gaming channels and my IRL/vlogging channels as well, which will be all getting linked in the description down below. And I guess I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.